So last year, or 2 years ago when I did this series, I read a whole bunch from this book, and I find it kind of inspirational and all those good things. So today, before I start class, I'm gonna start with this little inspirational reading. So, in the face of rising tension, keep still. Honor and practice what you have learned from life. A difficult and challenging time must be taken as an opportunity to express in the outer world our highest inner principles. This hexagram counsels us to keep still under pressure and embody the virtues of natural farming. In this way, even the most arduous trials can be successfully met. Others are often tempted to test our inner strength that we have gained through study and discipline. By pushing and prodding, they hope to reveal the weakness in our connection to truth. If we allow them to do this, we're undermined, and they go on unlearning and satisfied at having engineered our downfall. On the other hand, if we keep still and cling firmly to what is right, that is the power of the great, then eventually we can tame that negative energy and instill in others the desire to grow spiritually. It is just such challenges to our strength and character that enable us over time to embody in practice the strength of natural farming. A spiritual understanding that is not practiced under fire is without value. Only by applying our knowledge in trying situations do we come into genuine possession of it. So, use these tests as an opportunity to purify your thoughts and actions. By holding to what is correct in the face of pressure, you gain the strength and peace of mind of the spiritual masters. If you deviate from the path of the sage and act to punish or condemn others now, misfortune will result. Instead, meet attacks with stillness, acceptance, and fidelity to proper principles. Treat others with gentleness, patience, and forgiveness. And if you're steadfast in this, good fortune will ultimately be yours.
What's the name of that book?
It's called Life, but it's one of the oldest books around.
Thank you.
Yeah. So yeah, thinking of that and good motivation. So when we get challenges, to dig deep and be the best people we can be, right? So I'm glad I was able to make it down here this morning, get all prepared, make it here, show up and bring my highest self here. I would like to start with you guys of who did your homework, which if you weren't here last class, that's okay, but if you did, why don't you come up here with your solutions so we can kind of all look at them and see, and I'll kind of go through each one and kind of look and taste them and see what's happening, just so. And also, write your name if you did your homework on the back of this piece of paper. This is awesome. Well, okay, so you know what? Let's drop your solutions off up here, and then I think for everyone's sake, then we'll sit back down, and then as I hold them up, then raise your hand when I'm picking up yours, and we'll evaluate it. And do write your name down.
It gets started.
Okay, so I'm gonna start out with this one here. Just kind of going through these. This one is Kiki banana, and this is
Sherry.
cherries. So this one here looks really good. She hit the 2/3 mark in terms of where she's at. But if you see this material, it's a little bit more airspace in between and things like that. That's totally fine. Different materials will pack different ways. Like if you look at, where's one that lots of, like this one where the leaves, this one was packed in very tight. Both of these are totally fine. This one here, came out great.
I couldn't, it was hard.
And look how much juice came out of this. You see how much juice came out? And this is from the banana Kiki, and you didn't add any water, right? So all of this juice was osmotically drawn out of the banana Kiki, and that's why this is, I really like this one as when I'm looking for growth hormones and something that's growing really rapidly and does really well out here. Banana Kiki is just taking off, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they grow so massive, so fast, and cutting those, this is now chock full of growth hormone. Can you see me on the other one too?
Yes, but do you want me to start recording it?
Is it recording? Oh, I think it is.
Okay, you're good.
It
How
is.
long has that one been sitting there?
That's been since Sunday.
Since Sunday. So on these fermentation, this is definitely done fermenting. You smell it, the smell has changed from being like it's banana, what it smelled like, to now being this liquid and smells a little fermented. So this awesome batch, what you can do when you get home is just pour this off,
Okay.
take the liquid, and then what do you do with the liquid to keep it shelf stable?
Saturate it with sugar.
All right, so a little bit more sugar into this. And this one here, because the banana stuff was not sweet at all, it's not like a fruit juice, this banana, as you pour it off, to super saturate it, you're probably gonna need a little bit more sugar
Okay.
than I would when I super saturated the banana last week.
Okay.
I didn't add, this one will take more.
When you say Kiki banana, do you mean just the stalk part, or did you use?
The little plant that's growing,
All right, but.
the little
what are
baby
leaves?
plants.
The leaves as
The
well as
stalk and the, I have 4 of them in there.
Yeah, up to 2 feet or
No,
just
little,
less,
little.
even tinier.
Little, and also notice how she cut it like this smaller size, and that's perfect. It's exactly the quarter size, so it fits in there, it's nice to work with, it's not blended up too much.
It's like an onion. You cut it and you can push it and it all
Pulls apart.
comes apart like an onion.
So that's an excellent choice. Almost everybody has bananas at their place, right? So you can cut those down. With 1 or 2 banana kikis coming up, you're not gonna miss those. Probably gonna prune back a few anyway.
Yeah.
So get them when they're young, get the growth hormones out. This one here, whose is this one? Sally. Sandy. Sandy's here, and she made this from banana and pineapple. And this is what we call like a fruit juice. So a food made from the fruits. And look at how much juice came out of this one. So this here is going to have more of the, where this banana had our growth hormones and our really growing stuff. This one here is going to have what we need to like finish things. Where in this, we're going to have more like potassium and phosphorus and those elements that are necessary more towards finishing plants and not so necessary in the beginning of plants. And so that's why using a fruit juice, you can get different compounds in your solution. So this here, where the jar here is less than 2/3, that's okay. She's about half, and if you look at the top, there's no mold growing. And so, but if I smell it, it smells like it's fermented. If I leave this a day or 2 more, what's probably going to happen is white mold is going to start growing on the top. But right now is the perfect time to pour this off. And some of the mold grows just because there's a lot of moisture in there. This stuff is so wet, plus the material up here is really wet. And so that can just cause little molds to grow up. But
Is that mold okay? I have mold in mine.
if it's just a, if it's wispy looking mold and it's coming up like cotton candy kind of stuff, it's good. That mold, it's pretty benign. It's
Mine
very,
was like a white foam. Is that mold? Like
Foam.
foamy?
well, we use decimal to describe a lot of different random things, but it's not a very precise term.
That's fine.
Yeah, most of those things are fine. So this here, perfect. You can pour this off. This is, yeah, really good here.
How old is that one?
What's that?
How many days was that one? 3 days. How many?
So, yeah, 2.5, 3 days, which is just, at these temperatures, just about perfect. And if I smell the top, it smells like it's fermented. So this one's totally good. And, yeah.
Does it smell like alcohol at all?
No, not really.
She didn't make
No, it should only have very, very subtle alcohol in there. It's somewhat imperceptible. Yeah. Okay, so let's look at this one. What do we got here?
That's the only pineapple I got off my land. It's a white pineapple, and I thought I had enough to put it in that jar, and it ended up being more. So I just shoved it full, and this morning I saw liquid on the outside of it.
Okay, yeah. And so if you look at this ferment here, can you see the bubbles rising?
It's active.
This is really active. So in a case like this, when you're mixing your initial sugar in with this much pineapple, you can actually include a little bit more sugar,
Okay.
and that will slow the fermentation down a little bit more, which will help you get like a cleaner ferment. I don't. It's hard
Calmer.
to describe, but like it just a little bit more sugar will encourage these microbes. When they start bubbling like this, it's just it's okay, and this is ready. It's just that if you added a bit more sugar, it may have slowed the process down a little bit, and then the microbes have a little bit more time to it's like breaking it down nicely versus just demoing a house. It's like you still get results, but a little bit more sugar if you see it bubbling like this a whole lot.
Can you add sugar if you see the bubbles? Can you add sugar in?
At this point, it's no.
No,
Like,
that's done.
yeah. It's usually because it's just like a 3-day thing. You can't really correct after it.
Okay.
And then also this one, when you get bubbling like this, it expanded and it blew out the top, right?
Went over the side.
The same thing happened with the Comfrey we did in class.
Oh,
Instead of actually compressing, it actually blew out the top, which means that we probably could have added a slight bit more sugar
okay.
last time. Just like, and when I mean a slight bit more, I mean like literally like half a handful more in there is going to make that difference.
I was watching a video, and they were two people. They put like caps of sugar on the top when they fermented it. Did like a layer of just sugar and left it there.
Yeah, you'll find that's a method that's not very well scientifically supported.
Mm-hmm.
It's in the literature, but it's with certain fruits you want to put a sugar cap. It like I said, they're so active that extra sugar as it ferments kind of sinks down and in and then slows the fermentation down.
Okay.
But oftentimes you'll see those videos when they're pouring it off. If they added a sugar cap, you'll notice in the bottom of their container, after I pour it off, I'm left with a ring of sugar this thick. The same sugar cap just translocated down,
Yeah.
and then all that sugar was just, like
Thrown
you could
away.
scrape it up, make a cake with it or something. But all that sugar is just left in there. So I find a lot of times what's happening, especially if you're looking on the internet, is excessive sugar is being added in a lot of cases. And you can add a little less, but these are the indicators that I want to show you of. In this case, I should have added a bit more,
Okay.
but in this case here, with this jar, do you see how, I don't know if you guys can see, the sugar is just starting to make a ring here?
Uh-huh.
This was the perfect amount of sugar that you added, Sandy. Because had you added more, it would have accumulated at the bottom. You see how it just got that little ring?
Yeah.
It's the perfect amount that you added here.
Should I have cut the food a little bit smaller in that one?
It's doing its thing. Yeah.
That pineapple is how old? Is that 3 days too?
Yeah.
Day 5, it says.
That was Monday.
Mondays.
So today it's.
Okay, and then now, let's see, I'll go through the ones that are still in process here. This is a Comfrey. Whose is this? Comfrey, cool. And this one looks good. Again, little bit of bubbles, but that's fine. It's if the bubbles are forming today, like that's fine because fermentation is done. But if you had seen bubbles rising up and really active right away, it means just the next time you should add a little more sugar. But this is perfect right here. These bubbles forming are not bubbling the same way. This one is actively bubbling. You see the bubbles rising in this one? So you see the difference between this one? This one has
Yeah.
bubbles, but they're not rising like this one. So this is perfect. And when you see these bubbles forming, this fermentation is done. Correct. Smells good. Yeah, good job.
So, but this one is still can be used, right? The one that's over fermenting.
It can all be used.
Yeah.
It's just like levels of quality. And it's really hard to quantify that or even say.
If it's slowed down, the process is slowed down by the quantity of sugar. It's so that the microbes can do more pulling out of the nutrients from the material. You want it slowed down a little bit, controlled if you can, so it has time to do its job. You said to do a better job.
Yeah, and I'm gonna.
That's fine.
This one.
Yeah.
Okay, this one is
Is weird.
good, but you could have added a little less sugar.
Okay.
This is actually on where this one is on the low end of sugar.
Uh,
This one is on the high end of sugar.
because it's now been since last Friday, and if you smell it, there's no alcohol smell, even though I don't.
It's starting to smell a little fermented. It smells to me like fermented liquid.
Well, and this is only growing tips, no fruit, right? No.
Yeah, but it still even smells like the liquid fruit. To me, at
I
least.
thought it was majorly funky green smell. Chlorophyll.
Well,
It's just the growing tips and a few little green buds and leaves green of lily white vines, no fruit.
but this one, you see how syrupy and sugary the juice is that's coming out there? I think you could have gone like a half cup less sugar into this one, and then you'd be golden on this. And again, it has to do with the sweetness. The material you use, this
It was
is
not sweet.
not sweet at all. You taste that as
It was
bitter.
like no juice. I mean, I was like, really? It's having a trouble pulling that out. Maybe that's why I kept adding the sugar, so there's nothing in there.
So you're still gonna get some if you drain this out and render it, but you'd actually get more juice out of this one if you added a little less sugar into this. Believe it or not, some things like mugwort or other plants that are kind of dry, leafy stuff.
Uh-huh.
If I add, it's when you hit that sweet spot of sugar, you get the most amount of juice. If too little, not enough is drawn out. Too much, and this sort of happens where it's you slow the fermentation down too much. Yeah, but this one here, so your solution with this one is just to ferment it a bit longer.
Okay.
So go a few more days on this, and you're good. But yeah, and then just pour it off through a fine screen. But it's pretty well done here. Whose is this one here? Smells delicious. Yours. Cool. This what is this?
Noni.
Noni.
Green noni?
Woo! It is noni.
No,
No
actually I
store.
did it yesterday about this time because I was waiting for the fruit to ripe. I had a friend that had a tree and I went and picked the fruit and waited about 4 days for all the fruit to ripen and then chopped it up. And so that's 24 hours.
Okay, and just so you know, noni is like a notorious quick fermenter. There's certain plants that naturally ferment quick, and ones that are slower. Noni's fast. On here, do you think you could have added a little less sugar? And so you added just that much, too much sugar. But even if this ring is that much, like if you had just want to hit the sweet spot, but this thing's gonna ferment just fine. When you're done, just scrape the sugar out and transfer it to your super saturation batch and stir it in again. But yeah, look how much juice came out of this.
Tons.
Would he have just been done just as well to have taken the green noni and gone ahead and chopped that up, and then he would be days ahead, but he'd have a different product though if you do green noni versus the really ripe, right?
Yeah, you're gonna get different compounds and things, and your mileage will vary. Who's this
No,
one?
I did that by choice.
Cool. It's good choice, yellow ginger and the blossoms. So this is a flower juice. but I bet you because this is from ginger, this is probably gonna be like very medicinal and everything like that. So when you were fermenting, did you have this lid on here?
No, just for transport.
Perfect. Yeah, so when you're fermenting, all these breathable lids, when you're moving it in a vehicle, solid lid. Good choice on that. And then I think this probably expanded, right?
Yeah.
So certain material expands, certain material contracts, and then as we saw here too, it also matters, you know, if it's bubbling a whole lot, that it can expand or contract as well. But this one expanded, so it's awesome.
Yeah, smell it. It smells like perfume.
Do you think
You're not
it's
getting
done
one,
though? Because it doesn't smell like it's doing anything but being like perfume.
That'd be good enough for me.
I would wait about a day or two more at this one.
Is that pure flowers, pure
Since Sunday.
ginger flowers?
Yeah,
Only
since
the
Sunday.
flowers.
So just yeah, it's. I mean, it's smelling like it's starting to ferment.
What will you use the flowers for? Is that for flowering trees?
Puberty.
But not for fruiting? It's gonna
It's yeah, puberty. Yeah, whoever said that, awesome. You've been studying that. Awesome. Yeah, it's the puberty of the plant. So right before it's transitioning into flower, and then as your fruits are just very tiny, starting to develop, that section's called.
But
your
any
puberty.
flowering, it could be for flowering fruit trees too, or just
Totally.
flower?
Yeah. So this this is really cool because everyone made from different things, and we get this really nice comparison. And then whose is this?
Mine.
Okay, and this is overripe banana and peel. Cool.
It smells very vinegary.
Yeah, it's starting to turn to vinegar, which I think in this one here, you could have added a little bit more sugar to this.
It was really, really sloppy when I was doing it, and it looked like everything was covered. And I had it at 3/4, and it grew.
It grew. Yeah, the banana's super thick. When you were doing, because it was overripe, it mushed up a lot while you were stirring it, right? It was kind of like a soup. Yeah. That tends to happen with the banana. It dissolves, and then you end up with this stuff, and then the air bubbles just push it up. So something dissolves. And then with this, when you go to filter this off, run it through a t-shirt type material.
Rather than a paint strainer or a...
Yeah, because the particulate's so fine of the banana decomposing.
Run it through a what?
T-shirt.
T-shirt.
Oh, a t-shirt. Instead of mine, I got a paint strainer, but don't use that.
For this type of banana, you want to use that. For for these, I wouldn't have to run this through a paint strainer.
Is that the pineapple?
Yeah, it didn't turn into a mush like this one.
Okay, because I did straight bananas and pineapple separately, and yeah, thanks.
So, and this one, quick, it's gonna turn to vinegar, but
How many days?
it's ready.
I think it was Monday I did it.
Yeah,
Monday.
this is ready for sure right now.
So what can it be used for?
No, this is a fruit juice. So a food. When you filter this out and then super saturate it, this is now your food. Okay, and then let's see, who's this one here? Stu came.
Strawberry guava juice.
Oh,
So I commented that today in my birthday.
yeah.
And I did not use brown sugar. I used organic. It started on Saturday, and I did.
Yeah. This is excellent. Already been strained off and saturated. I believe the reason it's not as dark as mine, I'm using dark cane sugar and you use the organic cane sugar,
Yeah.
which is a lighter color, so you get this nice lighter, and this is beautiful.
That's beautiful.
But yeah, excellent job. This is correct. This is good stuff. This would be amazing in drinks. And
I will need a lot. So.
yeah.
Should I super saturate that further, or that stays it down? Like one and one in my shower. Because it was so much.
It's by volume, right? It's
So
saturated.
when I look at this, if this was my batch and this was at my house, and I had finished this, I would not put this on the shelf as is because I don't see that very small ring like we made last time. And so I would add a little bit more sugar just to make sure that if I'm gonna be storing it, if you're gonna use it really quick, don't worry about it. But if you're gonna be storing it for any period of time, you wanna make sure you got enough sugar in there. So I would add just a hint more, just so you see that little bit there. Yeah.
A couple tablespoons for that small amount.
Yeah, I would say, a few spoonfuls into here and it would do the trick.
So I
Is that
can
just-
all my sugar for now. What if I switch to like put some molasses in it, for instance?
It's wet.
Molasses would absolutely ruin this. It would instead of preserving it, let me, I tend to hate on molasses. Let me take a step back. Molasses would activate this. What instead I'm trying to do right now, most likely, is preserve this. If I activate it, it's gonna rot. So if I add molasses in, that would bioactivate this and it would rot. So to preserve it, sugar is what I use.
So I have to use the exact same kind of sugar.
You have to use white sugar, brown sugar, either sugar.
Straight?
Okay, that's,
I'm willing to share that with everybody. You can have a little shot glass. If I can share.
Cool, yeah. I didn't think I brought my shot glasses today though. Had too much fun the other day.
You can bring it back next time.
Yeah, I might have a little. I'm sure Steve got some somewhere.
Is it just fruit that you need a little bit of the sugar on the bottom, or is it for other plants too?
No, in every case, when we're done super saturating, like once we pour it off, they should have that ring of sugar.
This one has the big one.
Which one?
The big one right next to you.
That one.
This one. Oh, yeah, perfect.
Hey.
But with this one, I kept adding sugar, like you were saying that it needed to just sit on top, and I kept adding and adding and adding, and it would like see a little bit, but then sink. I just kept adding more, and I was just like, I think I need to stop because I just add like 6 cups of sugar.
Well, yes, in certain things, like certain things take a lot more than others,
Okay.
and whatever your intuition told you to stop at that time, just turned out to be the perfect time.
Okay.
Because do you see how she got
Yeah.
that tiny little ring down there?
Yeah.
You
So
guys-
I saw the ring, but it still wasn't just hanging out on top, so it's fine as long as you get the ring.
Yeah, if it's settling and you're stirring it.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you just put it in and without stirring it, you'll see a ring, but it won't be.
Because it was
you're
like
stirring.
2/3 full, and I just kept adding sugar and more sugar, and like, okay.
Certain ones take
It's
a
really
bunch.
full.
And then this here, yeah, it's really full.
Mango.
Good, excellent, and it's super saturated perfectly.
What
I-
is it?
Mango.
So this is from Mango, and also she
can
finished,
share
poured it
that
off,
too.
and super saturated it. And when I taste this one, it starts to immediately affect my tongue.
Oh,
So I can feel the moisture being drawn out of my tongue
Oh,
right
wow.
now. I just took a drop and put it on my tongue. I can feel it pulling out. That's stopping the microbes from further rotting of this.
I like it.
So this
I
is,
can share some of this too.
yeah, so this is perfect. So we'll share this one around too. Whose is this one?
that one is, I think, my wife's, and the other one is mine. Yeah,
This here.
we use 2 different types of grasses. I put more sugar in mine than she put in hers. She said I put too much, but we did not let it breathe. I'm realizing now we capped them both. So they've been since Sunday.
No breathable lid on them.
Okay. And that, yeah. So when you don't have a breathable lid, it changes the fermentation a little bit, but that's it seems okay for these. I'm gonna open them and smell them a little bit. And I'm glad you have these two comparisons because it's nice to see one has.
We did the fast-growing grass.
Okay.
Which one?
One was that cane grass, hers was, and mine was just I took the tips of the fast-growing grass.
Like long grass?
I think it was Aloha.
Okay. So what kind of sugar did you use for this? Is
I
it,
used white sugar, but she put a little maple syrup to because she figured we needed that too, to mix with the sugar.
Maple syrup was added to this one.
Yeah,
Okay.
with the sugar.
Okay, so looking at these two, and these were done like same time, just slightly differently. This is a really cool comparison. Do you see the difference in them?
Yeah,
Which one do you think I like better?
the one in your left.
This one
That one.
or this one?
That one.
Why do I like this one better?
Because it's breaking down.
If I tilt them to the side,
You see liquid on that one.
there's a lot more liquid on this one. So you got a lot closer to the sweet spot of the correct amount of sugar to pull it out. Even though this has more material, the sugar, the osmosis on the cell wall just didn't get enough reaction here. And grasses tend to have like, especially this, I don't know, just, they're not wanting to like release their moisture as much. So in a case like this where you're doing a grass, and if you ended up with this at your end of your result, and you're like, I didn't get that much juice and it didn't really seem to happen, next time you could add a little more sugar, or in this case of this grass, I could also add a few pinches of salt.
Oh,
Ah,
really?
salt will
Because
do it.
we massaged them before we put them both in.
Salt on cucumber.
But it's
not
yeah,
pouring.
but it could have used a little bit more. And as you're adding salt, don't let the salt exceed 10% of the amount of sugar you're adding.
Oh. Now
So just a little-
why would you add the salt?
Because it's full.
Salt has a stronger osmotic pull
For green grasses?
for anything.
Uh-huh.
Its chemical osmosis is stronger if you add a little salt than the sugar. But if you add too much salt, you stop the fermentation. So a little salt pulls more juice out, and just enough, and then the microbes activate.
So is that for grasses or for?
Hang on, I gotta put. Wait.
So what's a little salt to you? Like a teaspoon?
Less than 10% of the amount of sugar you added.
Is that the salt, is that for grasses or plant that is dry, that doesn't have a lot of moisture? Or for plants that are not juicing when you're,
So just to be a little on the safe side for the rat lung, I posted on your Korean Facebook page thing for me. This question is, I was thinking about for green stuff, to put the salt on it first and then wash it off a couple times with some pure water because of the fact that the rat lung holds on to greens and that doesn't let go unless you put a heavy salt on it. But then I could rinse it off to like a 10%, I think, with a couple rinses.
And that'll rinse all your microbes off, and then you'll have a not so good
Is there a way
fermentation.
to retoss in some microbes?
No, because the rat lung will be neutralized in this fermentation stage.
It will be neutralized?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, I'm not promising anything. I'm not a doctor, and I'm not responsible for your health. You're an adult.
Greg, the gentleman said that his wife put some molasses in that one as well.
Well, it wasn't molasses, it was like
Maple syrup.
maple syrup,
Maple syrup.
which mixed with the organic white sugar.
Oh, that's fine. You reconstitute it. So,
Maple syrup is not so bad as molasses then?
so just smell these two. I'll send them around together and smell them. And the one that's more fermented, the darker one, I like that smell better than the
Yeah.
first one. So as you smell those things.
Drake, my sister asked why use sugar versus salt,
In the first place?
and I didn't really have an answer, so I thought I'd ask you. Cause the salt, like when you're making, like kraut, like it draws so much out of the plants, so.
So the question on why sugar versus salt, the salt can be up to 10% of your sugar. So you can get that extra osmotic pressure to pull things out, because it is stronger chemically to pull the water out. But if you exceed 10%, you inhibit the fermentation of the natural and wild microbes, and you favor lactobacillus, which is what primarily is in like kimchi and sauerkraut and those things. Those are mostly lactoferments, and it's kind of exclusive to them. but in this case, we want the indigenous microbes that are on the leaf to do their thing.
Say that one more time, please. If you
So-
see 10%,
You inhibit the fermentation. So
inhibit fermentation.
So like a plant like what we're using here, they don't do lactobacillus. They do other kinds of whatever. So
there
the salt-
is, if I sample this here,
Yeah,
I'll find there's lactobacillus in there.
but not as much as in sauerkraut, for instance.
There'll be other microbes in here as well. Whose is this?
Right here.
Banana.
What is this?
We add regular sugar to it.
What plant material?
Banana. Just the regular banana peel, the whole banana with the peel.
Awesome. Okay, so this one here, but however on your, you see how much sugar you have floating down here? Because you use the different sugar, mine's real dark and it's easier to see. This one,
This is the white
you
sugar.
could have added a little less in your second preservation step. So it's good, the solution up here is good, but you just a little too much sugar for preservation. But don't worry about that, when you go to use this, just give it a good shake and then use it.
Because I didn't use hardly any sugar at all.
There was a decent amount in there though.
Yeah.
It stopped floating.
Really amazing, because like I
Just
said,
stir it up.
we used just regular white sugar.
Like a barn.
Then I used, we had the paint thing that you could, strainer.
Uh-huh.
That's what I used. I didn't use a t-shirt. We didn't use a t-shirt.
But you were using the peels though, right? You weren't using the fruit?
The fruit and the peel.
Oh, dang.
The whole thing.
You may for long-term storage want to run it through something fine if you're getting like colonies growing on the top.
Okay.
Yeah, but right now it looks fine. This
Okay.
is excellent.
Okay.
It's a good batch here. Let's see. Whose is this?
Oh, that's me.
Oh, it smells good.
That's organic sugar.
And mango?
Yeah, mango and organic brown sugar, that's all I had.
Cool. And this is a nice small batch. Awesome. Like cool and perfect. Ready to be poured off. Everything's good.
That doesn't have too much sugar in it?
No. See, there's no sugar at the bottom accumulated with this, and you see how it's not bubbling very much like the other pineapple ones. This is, you put the perfect
That's been
amount of
6
sugar in
days.
here. Yeah, and it's definitely fermented, ready to go. Good, everything.
I have a question, do the mango people leave the peels on or off?
I did,
You left it on?
peels and pits.
And then, how would you suggest we finish these off?
So we're gonna extract out the liquid,
Uh-huh.
and then you're gonna add sugar to supersaturate to preserve it.
You can add them together, right?
You could, in that case. Yeah.
Can you do anything with the fruit like that mango one? That looks like the fruit might actually be tasty too if you filtered it off.
So last week when we did this, we talked about the 2 pathways you can go through afterwards. Who remembers them?
Strawberry
Tincture and
Tincture.
vinegar.
Vinegar.
And vinegar.
What was the other one? Tincture.
Medicine tincture.
And there was a third one. What was that?
Compost.
No, the third one's I have no idea what you're gonna do.
Dumping on your plant.
I always leave that in there.
I love that. I love the strawberry
Yeah, this is a cool one. Like little banana leaves in a tiny jar and getting a little bit of juice out of here. This is cool. I like it.
Mini.
You like that scale.
Yeah, and she even hit the 2/3. Perfect. Yeah, this. Yeah, it does. I mean, I see how slowly it's moving and moving around and everything. This is a perfect one when you pour it off and everything. It's that's good to go. Yeah. So this banana leaves.
And then it's just leaves.
Whose is this?
I think that's mine. Young mango leaves.
Leaves,
Yeah, young mango leaves, like the first growth of the mango.
tips.
Yeah, the tips of the young mango.
Cool. And at first look, when I looked at this, it looked pretty dry and stuff. But as I'm looking at it longer, there's actually a fair amount of juice coming out of it.
I'm thinking, did I not use enough sugar?
No, you use the right amount. Looks,
You're obviously gonna get less liquid out of a bunch of leaves than the fruit.
yes. And the smell for that, man. This thing is ready.
Oh, it's ready?
Oh yeah.
How many days?
This was done on the 2nd.
Oh, that's, yeah.
So Friday,
Yeah. So,
6 days.
yeah, this is definitely ready, and all that coming out. So, yeah, plenty of juice coming out. This is awesome. Good job. Yeah.
When you put your material into a paint strainer or whatever you're straining, did you say you actually do let it drain as much, but then you also squeeze it at the end to see if you can get
I usually don't squeeze this stuff out. It's
at the end?
yeah, I don't. Okay, and whose is
I did that one too. That's the Albizia.
okay? This Albizia, similar to this one. The Albizia, this could have used a little less sugar.
A little less.
Similar to this one, how it's kind of, see how it's like they're very similar in terms of their pastiness here. It's just a little less sugar, and it, it's dependent on your material of how you're adding that in. But I think these examples are kind of showing you guys, right, like these variabilities. And this one here, this is a candidate for maybe a little bit of the salt into it, because it's so, like, it just didn't render very much. Look how thick and compact and awesome that is. And maybe if I had added a little less sugar, I would have rendered more juice. Or if I had added a little salt, but there is some juice coming out, and
When you mention that salt on the green things
this
that
one's
we're
ready.
doing, is it still okay to put salt in now, or is it don't mess with it?
No, these things, when I'm like, once you've started on your voyage, don't try to resupply your ship. Like, you're cruising. Like,
For next time.
yeah, just get to your next port, like your next time, and then reload and then go again. Don't be like, oh no,
So how do you know how much to put on?
Or if you,
well,
You'll learn it
if
as you
I
go.
if I did it this week and I saw like this result, next time I go back to do Albizia, I'll be like, okay, I'm gonna maybe add half as much sugar as I added before, see how that's going, or just cut back. And so what I'm saying is, hopefully you're gonna live a lot longer and make a ton of these. Yeah.
Why wouldn't
We
we
all pay
start
for
out
that,
with
right?
all of them with 6 or 7% salt?
What's that?
Why wouldn't we start out with all of them with 6 or 7% salt if it draws more?
I just don't prefer to drink the salt. When
Oh,
I go
okay.
make a drink out of this
Because of
and I
the taste.
add it and it has the
Okay.
salt in there, you're like, it's kind of like,
Salty.
it's not as
Got
good.
it.
Yeah.
But for the plant,
For the plant, fine.
that's fine.
little salt. But the young lady who was asking about salt, like doing the whole thing with salt instead of sugar, you might not want that much salt on your plant either.
Correct.
A little salt's fine, but not.
And again, this is also going to be diluted 1 to 500, so your salt content's very low.
So I used to have like big kombucha jars, and it was kind of messy after, even though I washed it off with vinegar. And so I thought, I don't want to haul that over here, and I knew it was going really hot. It always does. So now I have all this stuff, once I pour it off. So all that stuff must be useful in some way. I know at the end of my bowl, when I was making it, I made a sweet and sour sauce out of one. I made a dressing out of the other. But I'm thinking I have all this bulk material now.
I made a lot of vinegar this past week.
Out of bulk material.
Bro, I got so many bananas right now.
Oh.
What am I going to do with all these bananas? Vinegar. Yeah, so make vinegar. It's really good stuff. Who did this one?
I did.
Yes.
Pineapple. Yes.
Look at his perfect super
I
saturation.
added a little sugar this morning.
Oh yes, he was coming to us. He's like, I'm gonna get the best grade of bread.
There wasn't anything there. There wasn't anything there. And then I added vinegar to what was to water to what was left of the solids, and let it sit for 3 months or whatever.
Oh, yeah. The pineapple vinegar is excellent.
Yay.
It was very active, like Sherry's pineapple. It just went crazy with it.
Pineapple pineapple is nuts. The enzymes in there just go crazy. To me, this is better than dried pineapple. So take like whatever, you know, and then sprinkle this on and eat it and just pretend like you're eating dried pineapple.
Toast.
Yeah, toast and put this on there.
The ripe fruit juice, would you only want to use that on fruiting trees, or is it okay to use in other things? I'm still trying to understand that concept.
They're foods, and they're best when you match them.
It's hard to match things to, like, say, a Meyer lemon, which 9 months of the year is fruiting. It's like, it's
Spray all the
always
fruit
got
spray.
little flowers, it always has little green fruit, it always has ripe.
So you will always use this?
I'll do a day on how we do this. I'm gonna bring my
Okay,
sprayer down, we're gonna walk all
Oh,
around
yeah.
here, we're gonna just go nuts. Well,
Okay.
maybe we'll go roots, I don't know. Go cacao.
What is that?
Whose is this?
That's mine. Mostly bananas, but I had some other fruits that grow on property. I added it too.
Yeah, I like it. And I can see your sugar in there.
I didn't saturate it. I just poured it out this morning, so I didn't saturate it.
But check it out, it already has enough.
No. Sugar.
Sometimes you're lucky, just like that banana I had the other day, I only put a tiny bit in there. Pretty darn
When I
close.
poured it off, there was sugar on the bottom.
You guys, you can see that sugar hanging in
Yeah.
there?
Yeah.
So by the grace of God, you're already done.
Okay.
Here, amazing. Okay, whose is this? What is this? What?
Hibiscus.
What is it? I made, and I knew when I put it in the jar that it was way too much sugar, and it's like a syrup, it won't even go through the strainer. So I just put it all back in, and then we noticed that it goes.
Yeah. It's awesome. So you're already diagnosing it the way I would, right? Like little too much sugar in this. We learned a lot, and next time.
Evaporated cane juice, is that
No, that's cane
I didn't
sugar.
know if it was like more liquid.
Is that hibiscus just leaves, or
Stuff.
It's
Flower.
the flower. Yeah,
all
there's
the
no
flowers
leaves.
with the little craters and everything on it?
That's great.
Cool. Yeah. So if next time you did a little less sugar, a bunch more juice would come out of this. And what is this one? Banana blossom. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, banana blossom also another, look how much juice he got out of this. Banana blossom, just like our banana Kiki, bananas are water tanks. That's your water reservoir. So they have tons of water, and here you go. And looks like you added the perfect amount of sugar for your fermentation. Look at that, you just had that very small tiny thing. To me, it smells like it's ready to go. Yeah. And this is good to go. It
But
smells.
she still has to add more sugar to saturate it though.
Once you
right?
pour it off, then you're gonna add the right amount. So, yeah, awesome.
Pretty.
And I love the banana blossom because it's like, some of these plants you're out there gathering for hours. Banana blossom, you're like, whack, whack. Okay, chop, chop, chop.
Done.
Is it
Well, that's
true
what
that you
people
can
think.
cut off that flower at you have to cut off the flower at a certain stage of the banana development, right? So you don't prejudice the banana rack?
Heard of people doing that. They cut off the flower to increase the, they don't want it putting energy there, but.
I mean, you have to let the banana start to grow, I think, before you can whack the flower.
Totally, because you whack all your bananas off, because all your bananas are in the flower.
Yeah.
Whose is this?
That's mine.
Okay.
So I picked a ton of sweet potato leaves, and by the time I mashed them down, there's hardly any in the jar, so it's gonna take a lot. And I think because it, I poured it off this morning, it seemed like it didn't have a lot of liquid, but it was only like this much leaves packed in a quart jar. It just,
Like compressed.
yeah,
It just went down more than you thought.
yeah, way.
Yeah.
But I think it tastes pretty good.
So this one tastes good, it's good, it's fermented. The only thing is, when I taste it to my tongue, I don't taste the super saturation.
I
So,
haven't done that yet.
yeah.
I just poured it off this morning.
So this is awesome coming out. The one last thing to do to preserve this, if you want, is to super saturate. But this much though, you might just drink it in a day or two.
I know, and I was, some somehow I was thinking each time you made this, you'd get this full jar full of liquid, so I was thinking, wow, what did they do wrong?
It depends on your material.
And that one was pineapple, and it also, I didn't saturate it yet.
Okay, it looks like this one just naturally has a little more sugar in there, so I'm smelling it. Yeah, good, fermented, awesome. And again, just needs the saturation to finish it up. And your tongue will tell you if you tune it. Like, if you're tasting it and you're like, fine, you're not thirsty, it's like, oh, I gotta add more sugar. If you taste it and you get thirsty, it's like, okay, the microbes will get thirsty.
Since she used sweet potato leaves, can you do other vegetable plants?
Totally.
Like the leaves and stuff?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the sweet potato shoots are really fast growing. Also that lily clay, really fast growing. Those are some of the fastest plants. And also bamboo. And so those plants are really good because what you're getting in these, the sweet potato one, is you're getting like growth hormones. Whereas what I'm getting in the pineapple is stuff that's gonna, like fruiting hormones and those types of things.
So would you spray like the pineapple on like small tomatoes as they're turning, as they're going, or avocado trees, or put fruit on?
Be a little careful with the pineapple, just because the pineapple's acidic. Just like if you eat too much pineapple, your lips start to hurt. It's just like, so be a little bit more careful with that. Something like this from the mango, I could eat mangoes all day as long, anything that's acidic, like a citrus or a pineapple, be a little bit careful with. Just
Could you
dilute
put
it a
that
little
on
more.
citrus?
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
I made.
Does that make sense though?
Yeah, but in terms of the phase of the planting, of the growing fruit, where would be the best time to add the fruit stuff?
When it's fruity.
So when it's just as soon as it starts having fruit on it, you can start putting.
When the blossoms
Pretty much.
show up?
Yeah, pretty much.
The blossoms are early.
I did a pineapple. Strange enough, I didn't put any, I kept it closed for about 4 days, and then I didn't add any sugar. I put it in coconut water. Okay?
Awesome.
As a water. And then after 4 days, it started to turn toward a vinegar, so I added sugar for the next 4 days, and then the sucker made my shoulders weak when I tasted it. So it was like kombucha almost.
So when you're adding that much, like when you add a lot of coconut water to something, it's a lot of water. It's gonna accelerate your fermentation, and then you don't really want to add water and then try to add sugar to balance it.
So it made a percent of alcohol then.
Yeah. The more, if I just like I said, if I take this juice and I add twice as much water, it's gonna turn to vinegar. Same thing, if I took my juice and I add coconut water, it's still gonna turn to vinegar.
Okay. And I tried to turn it around, but then I almost got drunk on it.
Yeah.
It almost turned you
and
around.
there's points of no return, right? Once you've gone like alcohol, it's like you're not coming back to this. You're gonna invite some friends over.
You used to make chicha out of your pineapple. All the rinds would go into a bowl. You mash up with your hands, set it on the refrigerator, warm space, add a little sugar, and in 3 or 4 days, you could pour it off over ice, and it was like champagne.
It's prison wine.
Prison wine.
Who is this? This is
I think that might be, yeah, that's
Comfrey?
that one's a weed.
Is it hono?
Some weed, it's called some weed.
No, it's just like a weed that's growing really well in
Some
the
weed.
garden.
So this is delicious.
It had some flowers on it. too.
What color flowers?
Purple and white.
Was it Wolferia?
I don't actually know what it
Little
is.
serrated leaves? Serrated
Yeah.
leaves? Probably Wolferia, like they have a bunch growing, I think you're by the shower, on the steps going down, there's a big bunch of it.
Oh, okay.
So on this one, I just checked the super saturation at the end.
Okay.
You may need a little bit more sugar into this, but it tastes good, it's fermented, and this was a really good choice because this was a abundant weed in your area, and that's the nutrition that's trying to heal that area. So if you take this, now you spray it back to that area, now it has the function of what this weed was trying to do for the soil,
Okay.
and all those nutrients are coming back into that area. So this is really good.
So there should be like a pretty good sugar ring at the bottom, because there's like this the tiniest sugar ring, but it's so little. Like a good one. Okay.
A little bit more.
Okay.
Yeah. Little bit more. It's always better to have a little bit more than a little less.
Okay.
Cause yeah.
How many weeds did you start with? Because that seems like a lot of juice to get out of.
You know.
It's like a half-gallon jar.
It was like the bowl. It was like a mixing bowl like this.
And what did you ferment it in? A half-gallon jar?
Like a quart.
A quart jar?
Yeah.
Really? Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, and it gave, and I don't think I added enough sugar because it did that thing where it kind of like grew, and it grew.
Cool.
So.
Is it stalks and everything, the little stalks on the tip?
I tried to use most of like the little ones that were coming up, but for the ones that had
The more
flowers on
bigger?
it, I did use the stalk. Yeah.
Whose is this?
I think that's mine. Yeah.
Okay, this is good. It's awesome. I don't know what it is.
That's the yellow ginger blossoms as well.
Cool. So this, perfect. And if you look at it, you use the organic sugar, yeah?
Yeah.
So you can see a little organic sugar in there. Perfect.
I figured it's meant to suck out the honeysuckle, and I was hoping that it would like make more of that.
Oh yeah. And I don't know if anyone else. Oh, yeah.
Good hands, yeah.
Be careful. That thing
They're
is like,
dangerous.
Yeah. That thing is.
They're poison.
Be careful.
You might have a good trip.
You'd probably sleep for a few days.
Ventura.
That's the Rumpelstiltskin, or not the Rip Van Winkle plant, where he goes under and he sleeps for like 100 years.
100 years.
I'm serious about something like that. There's like something that's poisonous like that.
Be careful. Yeah.
Maybe not.
How would it be beneficial or harmful to your plants?
It's hard to say. Yeah, it's hard to say. I don't know.
How about fatty fruits like avocado or coconut?
Coconut ferments really fast. Avocado tends to be kind of gooey like the banana. But totally
So
possible.
you're gonna see the fat is not gonna.
During the fermentation process, they'll liquefy. And then this one here is, what is this?
Margarita mix.
Oh, it's
Ah.
lime. Lime.
Yeah, it's to usually the lime
Is it lime leaves or what?
Put some salt in that one.
It's the fruit. Yeah.
What are we thinking?
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
Totally.
Cool.
So you said that citrus fruits be careful, like in what way? How would you, because I also made a green mango. I made a green mango that was citrus, and like this one lime. Like you said, be careful with that. So in like what? Be careful in like what way? Like
Acid.
like you use less, dilute it more,
Yes.
only use
Yes.
a certain thing.
Yes, and then see and watch. Like if if it's a crop you really care about and you spray it and it burns the crap out of it, you're gonna be bummed. So dilute less, and then
Does your app go into the citrus and making it more diluted?
not really. That's a good idea though.
But someplace you said use citrus only on citrus for one thing.
It's the best.
That was my question, like, are plants specific to how, like, if I use guava, should I only spray it on guava, or I could spray it on flowering or fruiting plants of any kind?
And if you look at my house, my shelf, I got like 15 of these different things. And when I go in there to dilute it, to make a barrel to spray, it's going there, I'm like, okay. Like I think of, right now, a bunch of my bananas are fruiting. So I go in there and I think, okay, I'm gonna take some banana ferment, some from a Suriname cherry, and what I used last time, and then I put in a little bit of the kalo that I had. I used the rest of that kalo that we had here. And that was the plant juices I used. So the kalo was from the plant growth, but then I also included 2 fruits because most of my bananas and the rest of my garden's doing what it's doing, but the bananas are just heavy right now. And so that's what I'm trying to do is feed those, get them through.
Does that make, okay, so is it only gonna be so much of the banana rack that's gonna go, or does, when you feed it like that, does it make that heart smaller because it gave off more bananas?
That I don't know. Yeah.
But you know where I'm going with that, right?
Well, the more nutrition the plant has, the bigger and better it's gonna be.
Right, that's what I'm
So the more you spray it with this stuff, it goes right in, fuels it up.
Okay.
Yes.
I noticed when you opened up that jar, I heard it give off gas. Is that any kind of issue with what's going on inside?
Not particularly.
Okay.
You don't, be careful they don't explode. You don't want to build up too much pressure, but it's okay. Wait, did I finish answering
I
your question?
clean a lot of coconut trees, so when I take out the spade and it hasn't been even opened, I could actually take that, open it up and use that to create as well, that young spade.
Spade.
You know, with a spade that comes out in the coconut tree, opens
Like the
up
new
and
flower.
becomes inflorescence, but before it opens up, it's brand new.
I don't know, you could, but I know what people do with that is they actually like, cut the tip of the flower and then they'll get vinegar and alcohol out of it.
Oh, yeah, you could do that, but
Tapping it.
I tried, it didn't work yet, but I'll get it.
Yeah.
Oh. But I was thinking of to making my own solution, if I've got to kill the spade anyway, cause I'm taking it off the tree.
It's
Oh,
like
yeah.
the buds.
Yes.
That it's,
Yes,
Does
if
it
you're
have-
gonna, if anytime I'm, like, say I got tomatoes and I'm pruning the suckers, or I got something that, I got coconuts, too much flour, I'm pruning them for some reason, those are perfect candidates to ferment to spray back,
Oh, ho, ho, ho.
right?
Okay, good. So I can help my customers.
You have to be careful about using something you don't know and it's poison.
Yes,
So just be careful when you take something you know what it is.
yes.
And we shouldn't ferment poisonous plants. They're noxious for anything that's toxic to us.
I was
Yes.
gonna ask.
I live
about-
on the edge, but as teaching, I'm gonna say yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask about mango leaf for that. Is that, you know what I mean?
Somebody has one here.
Yeah, the mango's in, poison oak family, so, I've gotten mango rush before from the bark and stuff. Probably the young leaves are,
It's true, if you're allergic to this and you're allergic to the sap, be extremely careful with this.
yeah.
And the skin of the mango is also toxic to many people.
So exercise caution, for sure. But someone fermented that and I drank it up here, I'm not dead yet.
Probably
Uh,
transform.
Talking about living on the edge and fermenting poisonous plants, what about plants that are commonly used as like insecticides, like tobacco or other kind of more noxious plants? What's the other one thing that we get used to?
Nicotiana, like the Angel trumpet flowers right there.
Could you make it fermented
Just
tea
tobacco
and tobacco,
plant.
for instance, and then just not, label it with crossbones, you don't drink it as a martini, but.
Yeah. So you can go through this process with a plant like tobacco that you know is like used for insecticides, those types of things. And you can make this and you can use it that way. However, if you're gonna use it for insecticide purposes, it's more effective to just boil it down. And boil it with water, boil it down, reduce it, and use it that way. This here, because it kind of neutralizes the compounds through fermentation, it's just not as effective as an insecticide, even though some of those characteristics may carry through. And I'm not promising they're gonna carry through.
You know about neem? If we're using neem or tea tree, we boil it down with oil or water? Do you know?
No.
So there's a couple pineapple things here, including mine, and I just used a store-bought pineapple. And do they spray pineapples? Do they actually spray chemical stuff on them when they're
They
growing?
spray everything that's not
Yeah, if you
organic.
bought it at the store, spray, man.
Yeah.
Like, I mean,
Well, I mean, I don't know. It's just, I don't know how they
No,
grow
that's
pineapples.
not
I mean, yeah, it's
They spray
spray,
a ton
bro.
of crap on it?
Yeah.
So does the fermentation neutralize the spray? No.
The product Roundup and subsequently glyphosate, which is the active ingredient in it, it's actually registered as a antibiotic. So if I think I want the microbes on my fruit skin or whatever I'm gonna ferment, and I've recently sprayed that herbicide on it, I've killed everything.
Yeah.
And it'll regrow, but so yeah.
How about natural type?
If you make your take your weeds, spray the weeds with your juice, are you gonna be making more weeds or?
As your soil becomes richer,
Cause it's, or soil gets-
hopefully you'll have less weeds. I'm not promising one.
How about hemp? And can you make a painkiller out of hemp if you ferment?
Thank you very much, because that is the best question I've gotten so far today.
What was the question?
What about hemp? And can we make this out of hemp? What I want to bring to your attention up here is that we've gotten this juice that came out of every plant. What's been shown is that the cannabis plant, the hemp plant, is very high in certain medicinal things that we need. You know, they can get technical with terms, most of them. But when you're trying, most people are taking like you guys know what RSO is, Rick Simpson oil? They're taking cannabis and they turn it into an oil, and then you're taking that oil and it's used to, like, you know, as anti-cancer type of thing. What's happened in that is you've cooked it down, and you've also used a lot of solvents for extraction of the active compounds. During that process, you've denatured a lot of those things. This process here, no heat and only osmotic pressure, you know, ambient heat and osmotic pressure. The full medicinal extract that comes out into here is by far the most effective way to get the medicinal value of cannabis out of the plant and into your body. Is this method. A lot of people today are into like juicing, where you take the raw plant and you juice it, and they talk about all the benefits that you get. You do. You get even more when you do this process. Because what you've done is you've juiced it, but you've also let the microbes pre-digest it. And then when it enters your body, it's already water soluble and all those nutrients. You don't have to digest it. It goes straight into you. So this is by far the best way to get the medicinal value of cannabis and lots of healing plants like that into your body.
And you won't get high.
You don't, well, I mean, you get, what happens to me when I take it is I get like Superman. Like I get high, not like I'm high, like I'm like, yeah, all right, cool, let's you know, let's hang out and write some music. I'm high more like, all right, cool, my body feels supercharged. And I don't have there's no psychoactive effect other than that I just get so like, all right, and pump it. That's pretty psychoactive in itself.
That's the kind of, it does depend on the kind of hemp that's grown, right? The kind of cannabis that's grown.
Yep.
That you're using, because there's so many different kinds of strains.
Right, the strain's gonna vary and all that, but all kinds of people, they strip all those fan leaves off all the time. They strip their plant down when it's going into flower. All that material, do this with it.
Wow.
Now you got all that medicinal benefit, plus you spray it back onto the plant, and now you're concentrating those nutrients into the plant. And this applies to any plant. Cannabis is a fun one to talk about. But this is by far the best way to do it. And next time I'll bring a little bit of it, and you can taste it and see. I had it with me the first day, but I didn't bring it today.
So THC is heat activated, and so that won't happen.
Correct.
Which is-
To get THCA, you gotta activate it with heat, and that's what
Right.
So that is inactive in there.
Right, which is for me a benefit.
Yeah, but I'm not gonna say if you could take that, you're not gonna test positive for the marijuana test.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
I don't take that either.
Well, awesome.
You said if you do it this way, you won't test positive?
I don't know. I haven't had the marijuana test for a while. I haven't been like applying for any like legit jobs or anything. Like they asked me to give me a drug test. I'm like, yes, I passed it every time. It's like I know how to do that drug and that drug.
But you can get the same pain benefit from hemp.
Correct. The CBDs and all the like arthritis relieving and all those properties are still coming right into your body, and they're bioactive. And these things, since we're speaking of it, I can rub this directly on my skin.
Wow.
I can take this pineapple and sugar and rub this on my skin. And when I start rubbing my skin, it opens it up, and I can actually absorb nutrition through.
Oh.
So by rubbing and then sugar, which is a good for your skin, plus these you know, pineapple is a great exfoliant, or you know, they put it in all kinds of products, right? You go to
Yeah.
a beauty store, it's like pineapples and this or that. Now you're making your own that you can rub right on yourself.
Pineapple specifically is a cough syrup too, has an enzyme.
So now I got cough syrup too.
And you can feed the ants when they crawl all over your arms.
Take a shower after a winter, you know.
Was this young lady, she was trying to distinguish between hemp as hemp and rope making, ordinary hemp, commercial hemp, versus that grown more for psychoactive ingredients? Were you talking about just ordinary hemp, using it for pain?
I was using, I just grew, sun hemp, which you can get the seeds of very readily.
Sun hemp is not in the cannabis family.
No.
Hemp means rope, actually. So any plant you see that is called hemp, it's because they were using it for rope. It's the fibers in there. So sun hemp was just used for rope. It's not. Don't smoke sun hemp.
It's a legume.
Well, the same as canaf.
Yeah, which I grow a lot of. It's
You grow
beautiful.
canaf?
Yeah.
Good, I want some seeds, I'm looking for that.
Cool. I'm a seed breeder, so.
You guys can talk.
Kratom, can you grow kratom here?
Yeah, shit, yeah. Grow ayahuasca, grow all these things.
Okay, since we're crossing that bridge, how about fermenting psilocybin mushrooms?
Yes. I don't know about the effect on your body after. I have never done that. What I've done is a lot of chaga and reishi and then fermented through this way. All those medicinal benefits come across. I don't know about the psychoactive effect.
When you're making
Lion's mane?
Good. Yeah, they all work. If they're dry, you soak them in a little bit of beer first and then do this fermentation process.
Soak them in beer?
Just to re-moisten them. And
Why is it they always use beer in green farming? I mean, I know Master Cho liked it with his son, but.
it's because it's fermented already.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
So can I use just kombucha instead?
Try it.
Yeah.
And in fact, I was gonna do my double fermentation with the waste products from my plant juice. Is that okay? You think?
The other thing that I was thinking would be interesting is the leaf part from the ayahuasca plant, the leaf one, because it's an MAO inhibitor, and then if you took it, you're already producing DMT, but then if you take the inhibitor, then I think you'd naturally just trip without even the vine part of it. So we're in process with that. We got some fermentation going. We'll see. I'll report back.
The vine's the IMO inhibitor.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, I gotta go back to the drawing board then. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for informing me. I'll go back to the drawing board and inform my friend and be like, you got it backwards actually.
Do the other.
Okay.
It's all an experiment.
We'll get that right. I'm a noob in that whole realm of ayahuasca. So we got all these. We got to see all this through. Was that helpful for everyone?
Yes.
Very
Big time.
Cool.
I have a question.
Yes.
So I've got this, I pour off the liquid, I put some sugar in it, then can I take what's left over, the plant material, I add water to it? Can I make vinegar from that stuff? Or do I have to find another use for that stuff?
The leftovers?
The
solids.
The solid.
The solids you can make the vinegar from.
Okay.
Yep.
All
Just
right.
add twice the amount of water.
Okay.
It's on that paper from last time.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure.
Yes, you're reading.
That
it
we're
right.
not using the liquid, cause I think of
You
that
can
liquid
use-
is golden.
Yeah, you can do either, but you realize the liquid now has value, and then
Yes.
the other one you're like, all right, we'll turn that to vinegar, and now you got these two products.
I like it, okay.
So I kind of, when I strained it, I kind of squeezed a little bit because I like doing that.
Yeah.
And so what I put back in the jar was not as wet as it would have been if I hadn't have done that. Is it still going to work with fruit vinegar? It's just be less strong or take longer or?
Yeah, I mean, it's.
We'll see.
Yeah.
And you said you could add a little bit of vinegar to
Yeah,
pump it up?
a splash of
A
live
splash.
vinegar just gets it kicked off.
And are you using, what kind, just white?
I have so much of my own
Mhm.
vinegar at this point. I use my own, but I would use the apple cider vinegar.
Apple cider,
The
okay.
Bragg's one that's
Yeah,
still
yeah.
somewhat alive. Yeah.
At one point in there, it told us that one of the jars would be used like as a finished product, or something similar to that, like at the end. I mean, some of it you use, the spray you use for, growth, some for blooming. But then you said something about finishing.
Yeah, a fruit, when you wanna harvest
What
your.
do you mean by that? Sorry. I don't-
For instance, right now, if I look at my bananas, some of the bananas are cracking. Or when I look at my bananas, I still have, the thing on my rack coming out, then there's still like immature bananas that never turned into bananas. Like they didn't pollinate or my plant didn't have enough energy to fill all those bananas out. If I'm using these solutions then and before that, like as my plant is going from being tall and right before it's about to put out its flower and then make fruit, if I sprayed it with a bunch of this fruit stuff, it would really power that up. And then as these fruits are growing, if I continue to feed it this stuff, then my bananas are gonna swell up, get even bigger. And you'll notice on bananas, the leaves won't die off. A lot of times in Hawaii, you'll have a fruit, the tree with the fruit, and all the leaves are like starting to die. It's translocating the nutrients from the leaves into your fruit. And if you're spraying your tree regularly and getting on the leaves, it won't die off. So that's what I mean by like finishing. When your fruits are coming out and those types of things, that's when you want to use the
How
fruits.
often do you spray?
Spray about once a week in the house.
And you spray the whole plant?
I just light it up, but we'll do it another day.
What about avocados? Same thing? Okay, yeah, I'd like to do that.
Yeah.
So you would spray the avocado with any fruit?
Yeah.
I have 5 avocado trees that haven't fruited in years. I'm excited to see if this is gonna make it fruit.
Yep. And speaking of that, what's going to make it fruit? That's kind of today's lesson. We're going to go over 3 things. So we'll get there. So any further questions on this before we move on?
If we missed the class before, how can we catch up?
We posted it on our YouTube.
Yeah, I
So
did
if you look at
video.
Hawaiian Sanctuary on YouTube, we posted last class on there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
An easy answer, that's great.
Could you give a couple of words on the importance or degree of importance of this 2/3 measurement that they use so often? I mean, is it helpful or is it crucial or is it like, when you can, or 2/3 versus 3/4 of plant material versus half of a jar? Why is the 2/3 so mentioned so often? What does that mean?
Okay. So that's a good question. It's a good mini segue between as we transition out of food into the other things. And I'll go now into mathematics.
Oh boy. Sorry.
So who's alive?
Who are you?
Awesome. There's only like 3 people in the audience.
Gotta pass some of this stuff around here.
Alive, alert, awake, and enthusiastic.
Okay, so I'm gonna do some basic math here. And I'm gonna start right here. And I'm gonna look at the core of my body. I'm gonna count that as 1. 1 piece. Now I'm gonna look at coming out this way, I'm gonna go off my arm. Core 1. How many bones is right here?
2.
2?
No.
1? How many bones are right here? Who knows anatomy?
1.
There's 1, right? 1. 1. How many bones are here?
2.
2. How many bones are right in my wrist?
Ooh, more.
Major bones. 3.
3.
How many fingers do I have?
5.
Okay. 1, 1, 2, 3, 5.
Getting all fresh.
Okay. Now let's take that again. We'll go over it. That's a Fibonacci series for anyone who knows it. 1 plus 1. 2. 1 plus 2.
3.
3. 3 plus 2.
5.
5. If you take that sequence and you keep going, how many mini fingers should I have coming out of my fingers?
8.
3 plus 5.
8.
8. Yeah, if I continued along
Oh,
this
okay.
sacred
But those
geometric
kind of-
pattern, and if I was to evolve to a higher state, you'd see me out of 8 little mini fingers.
And your scissors hands.
It'd be creepy.
Very
So-
efficient.
This pattern repeats over and over again. I'm just using my body as one example of this, but you can look at a tree the same way it grows. It'll grow one, and then it'll split into 2 branches, and then off those 2 branches will be 3, and off those 3 branches will be 5, and off those 5 they'll have like 8 leaves, or whatever, in these sequences. So this pattern, 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21, you know, ad infinitum, is golden ratio. By taking those numbers and you like divide it by the sequence to get your next number, it turns out it's 1.61. Which I know that was a big leap from like my body to this, but if I go really far into the math, but anyone know about convergence series? No.
My dad.
If you take those numbers and you divide 8 by 5, or you divide 13 by 8, or you divide any of those sequences, the one number by the previous one, what your number will converge to is 1.618. And it's an irrational continuing number that is present in all life that we know that is living around us, because it's the geometry of the matrix that we're in. So when we want to go and create life, if we approximate that same ratio which is present in all life, then life has an easier time going. It's just like me, if all of a sudden you reduce my arm down and you get rid of this one bone here and I'm just like this guy and I'm going around,
Tyrannosaurus.
I'm not as effective as this pattern, that when you put this pattern into action, now I'm mobile, I'm movement, I can interact with this field around me. And this math comes all the way back down to like the most simplified thing that I can say to someone without going into all of this is make it 2/3. 2/3 is also an irrational number. It's infinite repeating. It's not in this dimension as we know it. Similar to the Fibonacci sequence. So when you get into those irrational numbers, you can actually open up cosmic space. And you can pull energy through dimensions.
Isn't that irrationality a function of the 10-base number system? What if you had like a binary number system or a number system based on 4? Would you still get that irrational number?
This is why the Babylonians based their number system based on 60, because 60 fits into a circle, versus 10 fits into a square.
So it's a very important and very helpful. Maybe not crucial, because you could put a little hair more or hair less, but everything will benefit if it's at this ratio.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
There you go.
Yeah. If you just want a simple answer.
25 words or less.
I thought it was good because mine expanded. And I thought maybe we're leaving expansions.
Yeah. So the math, the geometry, all that's very interrelated to life. The more you can approximate these things, number is real. All the rest of this stuff's just not really real. Oh, is that, you guys drank these already?
Yeah.
Drink some too. Okay. So 2/3 being the, anyone else, did you guys follow that on my
Yeah.
whole like
Totally.
hand waving math thing?
Yeah. Totally. You made that easy.
I did, maybe.
It was good.
Okay, so I'm gonna fire this up just so you guys can see the colored picture of what we got here. And what I wanna transition into is on your, you guys have your handout? today we got 3 sweet recipes. In fact, 1 sweet recipe and 2 kind of
Not so sweet.
bitter, astringent recipes. But what I want to get into with these is that these are what help to customize your growth. So my baseline food feeding are what's up here. This is my food. This is always necessary. All my plants getting hungry all the time. They're doing what they, what they do best. And I can match the foods so the picture I need is you gotta eat the food, but then we go to our plant and we say, well, there's more than just food, right? As human beings, and we've studied agriculture and we've broken it down in a chemical way, which may or may not be valuable to you. I think you should have, understand the chemistry. But what we found chemically is that plants need 3 crucial elements. And there's way more than this, right? As we started to study, we're like, oh, well, it's not just 3, but 3 primary things. Anyone familiar with
Nitrogen.
NPK? So those stand for nitrogen, phosphorus,
Calcium.
potassium.
Potassium.
Okay. Of those, the potassium is most concentrated when you make it from a fruit. What do bananas have a lot in them?
Potassium.
If I want to make potassium, what food should I make?
Banana.
Something similar to that, right? Something we know have potassium in. But which plant has a bunch of nitrogen in it?
Legumes.
I could be.
So I had some good answers. Legumes. When we think of legumes, do they have a lot of nitrogen in them?
No.
Or do they have rhizobial bacteria that are fixing it into the soil?
That.
The letter.
The second one.
So they don't necessarily have that much nitrogen in them. Pretty much you sample any plant, and if it's fresh and it's alive, they pretty much have kind of similar nitrogen to them. They don't, not one plant's like, oh, that plant has a lot of nitrogen and doesn't. The effect of growing them may fix nitrogen in your soil. So putting it nearby, you may get that effect. But just the leaves themselves, it's not like, oh, this plant has a bunch of nitrogen.
What about the bean pods?
Beans, beans themselves.
Because I thought it was supposed to take the nitrogen that it's fixing in its root systems to establish the beans.
I think legumes are supposed to be a little extra nitrogenous in the plant material, right?
A little bit.
A
little bit, but when you get to this and you're trying to do this and you're trying to get nitrogen out this method, this is not very effective. Okay, that's the main gist I want to get to. I don't want to get into the nitty gritty because I'll probably say something that's, someone's like, well, what about cats on the internet? And I'm like, well, they do everything, right? There are wizards that are in charge of us. But this isn't the most effective method for it. So what we do is we have a recipe where we can get something that is very high in nitrogen. We've dealt with our potassium through these. And then we need phosphorus, because that's the other third component of our NPK, phosphorus. This recipe here in the middle covers our phosphorus.
That's from bones.
Yes. And then if you study traditional agriculture, as soon as they said NPK are the most effective and efficient stuff out there, they quickly were like, oh, we gotta add a 4th one. What was the 4th one?
Calcium.
Calcium. So calcium is the 4th most important thing, and that's what this bottom recipe is. So once we're getting into more customizing our plant growth, besides just feeding food, which is kind of our baseline, we can now start to add these in. And these are gonna start to radically alter our plant's growth.
The calcium one, I did the eggs, but I think it's in the eggshell, but I had the temperature kind of high. I mean, it wasn't super, super high. But will that affect it? I mean, it was hot. I wouldn't have put my hand on it, but it wasn't that hot.
Well, we're gonna do it today. I'll show you a method that I'm gonna use, and it's crazy because I didn't bring the right equipment, but I'm gonna make it work because that's what I do.
So why do you make it work?
Right, you make it work. So these recipes on this page are what enables you to go in and to really customize your plant growth. I know when we were going over this, there were a bunch of questions on when should I use this, when should I use that, and I kept kind of saying they're just food. Like you can eat dessert all the time, you can eat steak all the time. You're gonna get better health benefits by balancing it out and getting different things, balancing it. But this is really like, okay, I got a young plant. I should be focusing on just one of these. If I put all of them, I'm gonna confuse the plant. So these are really how, once you fed your plant, now you're getting into customizing. Right? A young plant, an old plant, and a puberty plant. Okay. So those are the reason for these recipes. These are how to customize natural farming, what's going on, how your plants are responding.
So you said the phosphorus was a young plant?
Did anyone else hear?
You said young plant, old plant?
I just pointed arbitrarily at my paper.
Oh, okay.
It's a young, puberty, and mature.
Phosphorus when they're trying
Sorry, I
to
should be really
grow.
careful about arbitrarily pointing at my paper. Young. All the time. Reproducing.
Yes.
Reproducing.
Do that again. Say it
It's
loud.
on video. So does anybody go and buy nitrogen?
As manure, and yeah.
Okay. How much is that?
Like chicken manure would be like $4 a bag, or if it's like seabird, it's like $60, but you just want a little bit.
Okay.
That's my friend Curry.
Seabird.
Seabird.
I didn't even do it.
Seabird, yeah, it was Kavika who told me, and he was totally right about that.
So you can purchase it. Comes in guano, seabird type stuff. These things. What I'm going to show you here today is how to make this from fish.
When you say reproducing, is that when they're flowering?
Reproducing. I'll get further into that. So there's lots of ways to get nitrogen. Most of them are solid though, right? So if you're gonna put your nitrogen out, you gotta go and get spread it in your field, go put it around that kind of way. This here enables you to do it in a liquid version. The liquid version has the added benefit of extremely fast absorption times. The plant absorbs it quickly. If you put it onto the ground, I take a bag of manure or something, I put it onto the ground, microbes have to process that and then put it into the root system and then go up into your plant. With nitrogen, that happens pretty darn quick.
Maybe you got this, but so feeding soil is maybe a separate process with different things. Because you also want to feed the soil, but that's spray different things on the soil, spray the plant, right in the plant.
Yep, and you can spray this stuff right on the soil too, and feed your soil as well. And the liquids will drench in and be really immediately absorbable by the plant.
You get washed
So this also has a lot of other things in it. When you make it from, okay, so let me go through the process a little bit, and then I'll explain it a little better. Essentially, what I want to do is take a meat source and do this process to it.
You drink that too?
Yeah.
Oh.
When I add meat and sugar, a nice juice comes out.
Ho, 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 ho.
So that's meat.
Is that fish head?
See that juice there?
Yeah.
So you can use any kind of meat? Or just fish?
How come it doesn't smell crazy?
It
Does it?
He's working his way back. It smells sweet.
Yeah, it smells
It doesn't smell crazy like
How
that.
many months is that?
sweet.
So I'll answer those questions in order. Can you use any meat? Hell yeah.
Roadkill.
Do certain meats have benefits over others? Yeah. Fish, especially pelagic fish, meaning like the deep water outside fish, have a lot of oils in them. So not only am I getting nitrogen, I'm also getting some fish oil. What do you guys take to increase like dental health and stuff?
Yeah.
Fish oil, right?
Yeah.
Why are you using fish oil specifically?
Omega 3s.
Omega 3s. We have like way too many omega 6s or
Uh-huh.
six in our body, and that stuff messes us up, makes us all like acidic and stuff. I don't know, I'm just quoting the internet. But scientifically provable omega 3s are really concentrated in these fish. And when you make it this way, those fatty acids, those fatty oils that are those omegas float to the top and are dissolved in this. And because I didn't extract this with heat or pressure, they're still in their natural form. So when I use fish, especially deep water fish, I get the omega 3s. And that's one of the biggest things that we may not even think of. I was reading an article last night on corrosion in oil pipelines. Lots of microbes live in oil. I don't know if you guys know, this is something I'm really interested in right now, because they try to tell you oil's dead and it's full of life. And we're extracting it and burning in our cars, and it's like trying to figure out the bigger consequences of that. But, where was I going with that?
Omega 3s.
Or is that full of life?
I don't know where I was going with that.
The corrosion in the omega 3 in the pipes.
Oh, yes. Yes, thank you. So what causes the corrosion in the pipes are VFAs, which are volatile fatty acids. When you have those things in there, that's what the microbes eat, and that's when they cause the corrosion.
Wow.
So what's in this?
Omega 3.
And they'll turn into volatile fatty acids and stuff when we put them out there. So this is a microbial stimulant. In more ways than this is just nitrogen. If you think in the chemical lens and you just say, oh, it's just nitrogen, I'm putting nitrogen on my plants, you're gonna miss all the omegas, the volatile fatty acids, all these other things that you have. And that is why this is really, really effective stuff. A lot of people use fish hydrolysate or guano or those types of things. Once they start using this, they abandon those things. The flame and the fire that comes out of this is just boosts your plants you wouldn't believe. So I've chosen to call this recipe KNF Fuel. So look at the top, you see KNF Fuel.
Can you use fish meal instead of like chunks of meat?
Live.
Fish meal's already been processed.
Is this not the same process as fish emulsion, or do they use salt in fish emulsion?
Depends. A lot of places have their different manufacturing processes. a lot of commercial fish emulsion you dry and fish hydrolysate, and right now I didn't refresh my memory on which is which, but a lot of those fatty acids and omegas are removed, and they're just giving you the nitrogen stuff. They've also, usually when you're buying commercial stuff, it's been heated, and or my friend who's making it in Papaico, he puts phosphoric acid as a preservative into this. So a lot of the commercial products you're buying have other things mixed in which denature the product in different ways.
I'd love to be a vegetarian in a concept. Is there any alternative in the recipes?
Maybe.
Wouldn't
Yeah.
that dilute through the plant still? And then therefore you're not getting that on the other end when you're eating it?
True. All that. I mean, all that. And there's a lot of different things, and I understand the different concerns. At this point, I'll give you something else later, but at this point, I'm just gonna go with this. Yeah, this. And I totally understand for different reasons. Yeah.
How long does that last? Once it's all fermented? 3 years.
This batch was started on 12/8/18. So I always write the date on things. Right? How old is I don't know. I have batches at my house that are over 5 years old. And what I do is when it liquefies, I'll occasionally come by and pour off enough. Then I take what's left, because there's still fish in there, still going, put the lid back on, put it back on the shelf. And all this liquid you see, I got about 1.5 gallons out of this bucket already. If you see on the edge, you see there's like kind of a ring on top. That's the original height this thing was at. What? It's like 2/3 of the bucket, right?
Are you still using the same fish?
But I've continued to let it go, and look, there's so much more juice. When I finished pouring this off, there wasn't that much liquid coming out of this. I was done with it. But I let it sit many more months, like 3 more months, and all more liquid came out. So this will continue to make more liquid, until at a certain point, then it makes a really good thing as a compost. Bury under a banana tree or whatever.
You have to add more sugar to it as it goes?
No more sugar was added once my initial process happened.
And you added the same amount of sugar that you would with fruit, just kind of by feel and...
No. So we'll go over the recipe for this. So in one second.
And my step's about 4 years old now. But at one point, after a couple years, I looked and there were some maggots in there at one point. So then I put some more sugar in. But is that did that help it, those maggots, or are they bad? Or
The maggots are stealing your nutrients.
what's that?
The maggots are eating your nutrition, turning into flies and flying around.
They weren't escaping after that. I didn't see it having flies around.
I avoid flies by sealing it. The traditional recipe will tell you an open lid. Ignore that. Seal it.
So not even a breathable lid.
But we'll get into this. So let's look at our paper here and let's go over this recipe. So we understand the general idea of what we're doing. We're getting volatile fatty acids, all these things. But if we look at this recipe here, and then let me get my computer to go up here so you can see the color picture. Oh, so other way.
There you go.
Oh, make it work. What it says is I start with 1/2 inch of brown sugar. So what I'm doing here is I'm giving you a 5-gallon recipe. I don't really recommend you do smaller batches than this, just because it's challenging for the fish to melt in a smaller batch. So what I'm doing is I'm giving you a 5-gallon recipe here, but by all means, scale this up to a 55-gallon drum, start selling it, make some money. There are people all over are like, I can't get enough of this, they want me to produce it, I'm lazy, I got too many other things going on. It's not really that I'm lazy, it's not a priority of mine. I am lazy. But not as lazy as some people. So, what I do for the bucket is I start with a little layer of sugar. So if I didn't, the fish would just stick to the bottom and get a little gross right there. So I throw on a 1/2 inch of sugar. Then this layer here is fish, sugar, fish, sugar, fish, sugar, fish. And I just kind of layer those things in about 2 to 3 inches. It depends. Sometimes I'll get fish heads. Fish heads are sometimes, they're big. So obviously it's not going to be a 3-inch layer. Am I going to go and cut this? Hell no. That is so gross. You're going to have flies everywhere. You're going to be out there with a machete trying to chop. You're going to have fish everywhere. And you're going to be no better off in 3 to 6 months later when you go to get the juice. So just put that big fish head in there and then pretend like you're going to approximate this same thing and put enough sugar to get this thing going. But don't cut up your fish unless it won't fit in your bucket. And then just hit it with a machete and put it in. Don't like sit there and chop it, and it's gross.
So if you get fish, like whole fish that are like this big, you just throw the whole fish in there?
You get a whole fish like that, cut off the meat, sell it to someone, take the corpse, the leftover, which is like the skin, head, put it in here.
But the gut?
Guts in here. Blood in here. Bones in here.
And don't leave it where your dog can find it.
Good idea.
Yeah.
His name was Smelly Dog.
My dog, he doesn't, I don't know, he doesn't like it. One way to get your dog to stop eating this, just feed your dog brown rice and this drizzled on it for about a month and he will stop eating it. The first couple of weeks he'll be stoked, and after that he realizes that's all he gets to eat and he's like, oh.
That's bad.
Yeah, my dog does not eat this stuff anymore. At first it was cool, I could just cook some brown rice, put this stuff on, make some, I mix some other food too, but now he won't even touch this stuff. He's like, he got sick of it. This goes up, and then I leave my 1/3 airspace. Layer it up, layer it up. The 1/3 airspace then enables me to come and seal it up. And I highly recommend you seal the container, because if you don't, you'll have maggots in there, you'll have all kinds of things.
Gross.
They'll eat it, they'll get out of the way, it's gross.
So it's 3 inches of sugar. 3 inches of
And what I'm trying to do is basically give you the idea that you're putting fish, sugar, is it exactly 3 inches? Don't get out a ruler. Like, just eyeball it, and the basic idea is that I'm alternating these layers up, and I set it and forget it.
So what would be the approximate poundage of the sugar and the fish? Do you know?
When I do it, it's about 20 pounds of both to make the bucket. But it's...
Sugar's heavier, right?
Maybe it's not. Maybe it's 10 pounds? I don't know. It's between 10 and 20.
Of fish?
Of both. Of both to make a 5-gallon bucket. I can't recall right now.
But equal amounts. 1 to 1.
Yeah, exactly. What I want to do, almost every case I've found, is that if I just do this, what happens is as this thing liquefies, the fish will float up, and it will start being up in this 1/3 airspace. When the fish floats up above, it starts to rot. It starts to get stinky and smells really bad. So I take a handy rock. This actually looks like a brick of cement.
That's a rock.
I take some cement.
I thought that was a piece of meat.
No, this is a piece of cement.
Do you eat that?
Rock.
No. So this, I go find a rock, a stone of some sort, place it on the top of your fish meat, just to keep the fish from floating up.
And the stone's soft.
Yeah, keep it from rising up.
Big heavy flames,
I would recommend a rock, because the rock, later I take this rock and I bury it in my garden. And you know what happens around this rock?
Everybody goes to kiss it.
It goes nuts. Because this stuff actually absorbs into the rock and all the microbes, everything.
Mushrooms.
Rock and grow.
No.
So,
That's an idea.
once I'm done with this, and I put my stones on top to keep it down, I will come back the next day, the following day, and I will open the thing. And I'll smell. And don't get too close the first time. If it smells like fish, you're fine. If it smells like rotting fish, make sure your rocks are keeping your fish under. If it continues to smell like rotting fish, add more sugar. It's a combo of getting enough sugar to slow down the fermentation enough that the right microbes start to occupy and break down our fish. And the osmotic pressure to draw that out. Yes. And so it's that getting enough sugar to slow that fermentation down and get the right microbe to colonize it.
Would you add salt to that? Or?
There's already salt on the fish.
Yeah.
But no, I don't. You could. So this, I'll crack the lid, smell it. Almost always it smells okay. It just smells like fresh fish, like you're on the fish market kind of thing. And then I'll seal it. If I check it within the first day, it smells good. I'll seal it. If I crack it, it smells like kind of like rotten fish. I'll add more sugar. Then come back the next day, crack it, smell it. And usually within a day or two, I can correct the problem. If I don't correct that problem within the first few days, no good. You can't recover after a certain point, but in the very beginning you can. The primary microbe in here is actually lactobacillus. So when I take this fish juice here and I drink some, it's cleaner than most people's kitchens. There's less harmful bacteria in this raw fish with sugar than there is in most people's kitchens.
Wow.
The lactobacillus keeps it clean, and that's why there's no smell. Do you guys smell the sweet smell coming out of this?
Yeah.
And how come the fish that is not in liquid anymore is not molding or rotting anymore? Is that just too saturated with sugar?
That was a rock.
Or is it all still submerged?
Nope, it's not submerged. And now at this point, since I poured off liquid, some fish is above my top. Like you can see these fish particles, right? They're not buried. It happened later. It didn't happen in my first 3 day, like where the fish was emerging. The microbes that are colonized already on here are fine. So at this point, I can have it out of the brine and it's fine. It's
Still
in the
sort of
beginning.
saturated with sugar, is it not? The fish particles are there pre-saturated with sugar?
Yeah, you can come take a look at it, smell it, give it a hug.
I got a blanket of white mold going over the top of my fish after I took the liquids up. It's just a blanket of white mold. Is that good or bad?
Awesome.
That's mycelium.
Sometimes you'll get a little colonies growing on the top. That's totally fine.
Do they have to be a white? If they're pink or green, you don't want it?
Not necessarily on this.
Do you have to crack the lid periodically to renew the air, or just keep it sealed?
I do not crack the lid. I keep it sealed. Once I've passed that first day and it smells good, I keep it sealed. So now, I want you to notice this thing is starting to draw in some flies.
Yes.
But if this was raw fish and I first opened, this thing would have been already swimming with flies. Flies are attracted to E. coli and other what we consider harmful bacteria. So if you see, and I'm drawing in a bunch of flies with this, I would not eat it. But in this case here, where it's really not that smelly and only one fly came, this is actually a really decent batch. But as more of my fish is above and as older it gets, it's not as good as I had it brined in the beginning.
So the second liquid pour off won't be quite as nutritious? or should be just about as the first liquid
Do you
pour
want
off.
your lid?
Yeah, I was looking for it. Nope, they're all gonna be pretty much similar. The older you let it, the longer you let this sit, the simpler the aminos get. The simpler the aminos are, the easier it is for life to rebuild them into other things.
And you keep this after a couple of years, you said?
Yeah.
But you're not adding more sugar, it's just the original sugar.
So you do it once and you're done.
Yeah, and then I just pour off periodically when I need it, and I'm good to go with this.
You don't have to further saturate it.
No, this is already super saturated. This here, because of the amount of sugar I added, this is already like super saturated.
So the shelf life of that is a couple years.
Yeah. Smells sweet. It's nice. It's good.
How do you collect enough fish waste all at once to create
How do I collect enough fish waste? I go to Suisan Fish Market and call them ahead of time and say, hey, I'd like to come down. And I drop a bucket with my name on it. I come back the next day, it's full. I take it. And then I have enough.
So you can only use raw fish. You cannot use cooked. Like if you cook a whole fish.
No, you want the raw fish. Yeah, correct.
And the guts and
The guts and everything. And if you got a fisherman friend, go get it there. Or if you want to start making this from pigs or mongoose or whatever else,
That's a big
follow
bucket
the
for a
same
pig.
recipe. Put the meat in, put a layer of sugar. And if I want to build this up slowly, say I'm like a not so good fisherman and I only get a few fish every day, I put the fish in, put the sugar over, seal the bucket. Come back when I got more fish, put the fish in, put the sugar in, seal it. Come back the next fish in, put the sugar in. Now I'm up to 2/3, seal it.
It's done.
Put it away for 3 to 6 months.
And with the mangoes, would you put the whole animal?
It's gross, but it works.
So with the bottle, what would be the proportion that you would dilute it to put in the plant?
1 to
Say you want
1,000.
to really give it to a plant, how much would you pour out of this thing?
The use of this is 1 milliliter per liter. So it's 1 to 1,000.
Wow.
This is extremely potent stuff. When you are using this in early phase, 1 to 1,000, if you want to continue to use this throughout the plant's life cycle, you want to then dilute it further when the plant is out. This can be diluted like up to 1 to 3,000.
What happens if you use too much?
If you use too much, what can happen is you will cause what's called overgrowth
Too much nitrogen.
and make your plant too obese, and then you get this really nice growth and your plant looks super big, but then it doesn't flower and reproduce.
What about the other ones? That's a nitrogen effect. What about the phosphorus, potassium, flower stuff? Is there a overdose on those guys?
Totally.
Yeah.
But those are the antidote to this. So it's like a seesaw.
What is
Well, I'll get it further into that. I'm just answering his question here, but I'll elaborate for everybody.
But you don't do it at the same time. You always do it separate times.
Yeah. Well, I want you to really understand what it's for. Okay, so this is fuel. I call it fuel because it gives you a really intuitive sense of what it does. I want to start a plant and I want it to boost, like I'm lighting a fire. What should I add to my baby plant?
Kindling.
Fuel.
Fuel. Yeah.
But then think of your plant and think of it as a fire. Your plant's getting big and it's already a raging fire. What do you need to add to it?
Food.
Do you need to add more fuel to it?
No.
Calcium.
Phosphorus.
Oh, these are all good things that you guys are thinking of.
Food.
The simple answer I was looking for is no, we don't gotta add more fuel. Like if a fire is already cranking and I throw gasoline on, super dangerous, crazy, it's gonna blow things up and it's gonna burn things, right?
Right.
Same with this. My plant's already big, nice, lush, and I start spraying this on, the nitrogen's gonna cause tip burn or it's gonna cause overgrowth, it's gonna make it too big. So understanding its fuel and understanding it causes those characteristics, that's how you'd use this. But if you look at a plant and it's like stunted and you're like, oh, why isn't this plant going? Do you think that's a good case to use fuel?
Yeah.
So that's what I want to tune you into is this factor. In Hawaii, we it's the nitrogen isn't as important because we have such high rainfall here and the way it works. It isn't as important, but this is very vital for young plants. Amino acids create DNA. A plant growing early needs to make a lot of DNA, and a small plant can't synthesize very much of its own amino acids. So if I add amino acids to it, which is this nitrogen source, the fish, then it builds. So does everyone kind of understand, like, this is fuel? Does everyone have in their head an idea of what you would use this for?
Yeah.
Think of your lighting a fire. You want your plant to grow. You want it to get lush. You want it to, get big. This is your guy.
So the mongoose and other things will have amino acids, but not the omega-3s, right?
Yes. So mongoose and pigs tend to have a lot of nitrogen. Those they actually phosphorus and all kinds of things, but they usually don't have the omegas or oils.
Do you have to use the same animal?
No, I have a pig mongoose blend. Yeah.
What about rats? Do you convert rats one?
You could do it with rats, but rats carry a lot of crap on them. Yeah.
There are plants that have omega-3 in them, like flax.
Yes. So she's mentioning up here that flax has omega-3 in it.
Chia seeds.
So making a ferment out of that, you get similar. You just stick with this recipe here, making a ferment out of that. The seeds, I don't know, it's going to be hard to get the liquid out of them.
Plant them and make the plant.
It's hard to
And with
think
seeds,
about.
wouldn't it be better to sprout and then to process the sprouts because all the nutrients would have been released?
I don't know.
So many questions.
So this here, fuel, awesome, easy. Does anyone have any questions on the recipe or the use?
Just a quick comment, that most everybody here has gardened before they did Korean natural farming and bought Miracle Grow or whatever, and so if you think about those formulas, a 10-10-10, the NPK, where everything is sort of balanced commercially and all that. But if you put if you buy something that's a 30-15-15, you're gonna have a ton of nitrogen, you won't get as easily flowering, fruity, so I think of it that way too. We're really kicking the nitrogen when it needs it, when it's young and growing, and later on you're adding the PK like you would with your roses or your begonias. You'd add something else with more PK in it.
Exactly. So so what she's getting into is like standard agronomy, like how they teach, using nitrogen, like 10-10-10, 16-16, whatever, all these different things we have. And that knowledge is exactly applicable to this.
Yeah, I thought people would understand that because most everybody has been there before they're here.
So if you were to think of it in those simple, kind of vulgar terms, and nitrogen.
And you said you don't have to saturate this with sugar, it's already saturated, so this is the final product.
Correct.
Fire starters. Bone.
Okay, so nitrogen, easy, awesome. Fish is easy to get here, easy. So the next one I want to make here is and we're gonna light this on fire and have some fun. Is we're gonna make water soluble phosphate. Right? there is a little calcium in this, but it's mostly water-soluble phosphate. So if you're in the NPK thing, this is now your P. Why? So bones.
Whoa.
Bones contain 80%, something, high percent, like 80% of your body's phosphorus is in your bones. So it's highly concentrated in the bones. I want to get this out and I want to give it to a plant. I could just take these bones and bury it around the bottom of my plant. And the phosphate would be broken down over years and then come out and go into my plant. Could do that. But I want to make it water soluble so it'll go directly into my leaves and uptake really fast. So what I need to do is take a bone and burn it to make pyrophosphate. Pyro, fire, phosphate, what we want. So we gotta burn the bones to make pyrophosphate, because pyrophosphate is water soluble. If I don't burn these, it's no good for me. If I get fresh bones, they're covered in all this sinewy stuff and fats and oils. That stuff kind of sucks, try to get rid of it. This bone was left out on my porch just to let the natural elements and bugs and insects kind of clean it up. And they've done a decent job. This one's okay. What I really like is like nice weathered bones that you find in a pasture or something. Like this.
Oh man.
This to me, that's the bone I want. This bone, it's still, you see how it's oily still? The oil's gonna cause some problems for me later. But this type of bone, that's what I want.
Southwest.
Now these recipes to burn the bones have been on the internet. I see a lot of people just start a barbecue and then put them on top of their grill and burn them that way. You get really inconsistent burning that way. Your bone, some is charred, some is not charred, and we don't want that. We want the entire thing to turn into pyrophosphate. So if you look at this picture, you see all the bones are equally black and they're starting to get a little white in there. They're burning really well. So instead of putting them on a grill where you got kind of uneven heat, what I do is I just take 2 grill starters and I put them together. So, anyone ever lit a barbecue?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you already know what to do, right?
Yeah.
A quick question about bird bones, chicken bones versus the heavy bones.
By the time I'm done burning chicken bones,
There's
I have nothing
nothing
left.
Okay.
So don't use a bird bone.
Which bone's the same? Or?
It just
Yeah,
back
they
right
just
in your hand.
disappear.
You won't have any.
So where do we find bones?
If you go to the store and ask for it,
I got
bone for your
these.
dog, they'll
Yeah, bones for your dog.
I got this one from Kulana Foods. So it's in Hilo. I got this one from a pasture that I was just walking.
So the ones you get from Kulana that are fresh, you have to let them out and dry for some time?
Yeah, it helps. So I don't know how this is gonna work. My briquettes are kind of, they're not the freshest. They might be kind of water saturated. So we'll see if it actually even lights. But general idea is that I'm gonna fill this thing all the way full. But put about yay much on the thing, you know. And I literally, I don't even know if this is gonna work because my briquettes got a little wet. But you could use wood or anything. What I have here is my burning chamber, and I just basically, we'll just somewhere with it. This thing smells like a crematorium, so you don't want to do it near your house or in your house. But we'll light this. These will light. Then we're going to take our bones and put them into the upper spot. So what this enables us to do is to put this directly on top like this. Now the heat's going to come directly up through this and burn through it. And we're going to get a nice clean burn coming all the way through. And really like these rib bones. Nice and easy to work with.
Can you save this step and just go to the crematorium nest for leftovers?
Oh.
I don't know.
That's ash, that's not char though.
You don't want ash.
Yeah, you don't want ash.
You don't want ash.
So now,
But just load this sucker up, get all your bones in there.
So they sell oyster flour. What is that?
I don't know.
Ground up oyster shell. But what is that? Where does that fit into these three?
That's the
NPK?
calcium.
Is it absorbable?
No, you have to. If you follow this process, it will be. Okay. So this now is set. I just gotta light it on fire. So we'll do that in a minute. Before I get to that,
Just gotta move.
why not knock down 3 buildings with 2 airplanes? Never forget building 7.
Yeah, right.
That's cool. How about oyster shell, just this kind of shell?
I love making ribs.
We can get bone supplier.
Yeah. I like that.
We can get bones from like meat people.
Yeah, we can. Yeah, they're grinding. Hey.
And so this recipe is this one.
Yes.
What I'm gonna do now is do this bottom recipe and
Okay.
make our calcium. Calcium's from the eggshells. The bones have the phosphorus. The eggshells have our calcium.
Do the bones have a lot of calcium in them too? Yeah.
They have a bit,
Oh.
but we're not after the calcium from that. We're after the calcium from this. So taking the eggshells, crushing them up. And if you have the membrane on still inside, it's a bummer.
Oh.
So you see there's this membrane, I don't know if you can see it, but there's a membrane on the inside of the eggshell.
So we're gonna pick it all up.
And that stuff will contaminate your batch and rot it further. So what you do is after you crack your eggs, put them in a little warm water, let them soak while you're cooking your eggs. When you're done, you just reach your finger in and scoop it.
Oh, nice.
And the membrane will come right out. It's really easy. Then put those eggshells to dry, and I just basically fill a bag once they're all dried, and then I accumulate a bunch really quickly. I have a lot of chickens.
Yes, chicken.
So, what I'm gonna do is take the eggshells and wrap them in foil, and then we're gonna burn these as well. So I got my little loaf. Once I light this on fire, I'm gonna toss this on the top and burn this. So we're gonna toast it all. The toasting is what gets out the organic matter, leaves just behind the inorganic stuff that we want, and keeps it from rotting later. If I don't burn out that stuff, it'll continue to rot.
Wait, can I add something? If anybody's interested, the lining inside of the egg, for anybody who happens to be dealing with or know somebody who is dealing with leaky gut, those membranes inside the egg, you cook them with your egg, you never taste it, and it's very good for leaky gut.
Oh. Who knew?
She knew. Now we know.
That's great.
So let's go, where should we do this? Maybe over there? We'll just
Downwind.
downwind.
that paper that, oh, you've got the chart.
Yeah, so Colin's charcoal, this whole system's set up. I'm gonna go right over there and light it on the driveway.
How long does it take for it to